We'll now look at some of the important background for understanding the letters to the Thessalonians by Paul, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. Most scholars believe that Paul is in Corinth at the time that he writes at least 1st Thessalonians. 1st Thessalonians, therefore, would be one of our earliest Pauline letters, depending upon the theory about which Galatians Paul is writing to. Galatians may actually date after 1st Thessalonians. And if that's the case, then 1st Thessalonians would be an indication of some of the early Paul's thought, early Paul's thinking on various subjects. 2nd Thessalonians is more difficult because 2nd Thessalonians is considered by many scholars to be another example of pseudonymity. That is, someone has taken on Paul's name and has written this, and that is decided because what Paul seems to be saying about the end of the age seems to be at somewhat tension with what Paul says about the end of the age in 1st Thessalonians. But there are a number of scholars that don't see any inconsistencies between what Paul is saying in the two letters about the coming end of the age. So Paul is in Corinth. Timothy and Silas have joined him after having been left by Paul in Berea, and one can kind of get a little bit of a background of Paul's travels by looking at the book of Acts. Acts tells us about Paul leaving Thessalonica. He has to get out very quickly because there is some persecution of Paul, and so his life is in danger, or he's endangering the lives of other Christians by staying present in Thessalonica. And so he leaves, goes to Berea, ministers there, leaves Timothy and Silas in Berea as he makes his way down to Athens, spends a little bit of time in Athens, and then moves down to Corinth. Timothy and Silas have left Berea, where there looks like there was a favorable reception of the gospel, and then now have joined Paul in Corinth. Timothy has brought some encouraging news to Paul about the Thessalonians, and so this seems to be part of the occasion, part of the prompting of Paul to write this letter. Paul has sent Timothy back to Thessalonians with the first letter, and so Timothy is seen here kind of as this go-between between Paul and other congregations. And Thessalonians, part of what Paul has heard from Timothy is that there's also some problems, that the Thessalonians have misunderstood some of the things that Paul has said, particularly about the resurrection and or about the end of the age, and believe that the end is coming very, very soon. And so particularly some Christians who probably are kind of at the lower economic scale, they have chosen to stop working and have instead opted for other Christians, wealthier Christians, just to take care of them. And Paul is going to partially in this letter correct that understanding about waiting for the Lord, waiting for the return of Jesus, and encouraging Christians to continue on working. Paul's second letter to the Thessalonians was probably written soon after Timothy returned from Thessalonica. So we have Timothy going to the Thessalonians with the first letter, then coming back kind of with a report or response about the Thessalonians and their receptivity, also kind of reporting a little bit more about what's been going on. So not long after Timothy has returned, this letter does not indicate who has delivered the letter, though it may be that Timothy and Silas may have been involved. And so that gives us a little bit of a kind of a background of where Paul is at the time, and a little bit about the kind of interchange and how he is responding to situations that have been occurring or arising in the city.